and think about where I was, 3.5 months ago, and try and draw parallels to what I was feeling, thinking, and doing, and to what Dream did, felt, and did. And when I did that, I started to empathize with him a lot, because there are a shocking amount of similarities to what he did and to what I did.
It doesn't matter. Like, he doesn't think he did anything wrong. Like, nothing.
There is zero.
There's nothing here. It's the same thing as last time, only worse.
Dream. For those that aren't aware of the controversy, I'm going to try and sum it up as quickly as possible.
That's a lot of money.
I'm a lying sack of
2
shit.
years ago,
And he was old enough to know better.
Why would you do that to a
He's old enough to know better.
Like,
Most people, if they lie and they get out of something, they're like,
Yeah.
Johnny boy. Wait a minute. Not only has this worked, I can pick up this club and I gotta hit you over the fucking head with it. maybe me and Nick, this conversation we had about Dream was just, maybe you're just not working. This isn't working because you're a liar, and everybody knows it. And it's just that simple. Everybody knows you're a liar.
I didn't really know what else to do, to be fully honest.
No responsibility, none.
Yeah, the situation really
None.
it broke me in a way that I
No,
didn't
it
broke
broke
me
you after you
before.
got caught.
Obviously, I've been in controversies before. Obviously,
No, you weren't. Only with me telling everybody. Only with me fight when you're telling everybody you're fucking full of shit.
I'd say only you basically calling what was.
Yeah. Like you're a scumbag.
Why the channel was deleted.
You either die here or live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
We don't want to become a villain. This video is a response to 3 videos: Technicals video about Zero, John Swan's video about Technicals, the franchise video about John Swan. Before being accused of being supporter or hater of anyone, this channel is about taking a balance. Could also defend people we've criticized. There was intended a video defending Mr. Sin from Harley, because Harley doesn't understand fair use. This channel is retired. Only returning to make this because it's the right thing to do for the community. Credibility in commentary is a value. If you prevent someone from earning their credibility for past actions, you are no better than the ones you criticize. You criticize to improve. To quote NBA, facts don't care about your feelings. So don't let your feelings come in the way of facts. Let's begin. John Swan received criticism for 2 key situations. One of them you'll never heard the end. He lied to Dream. No one can lie to Dream. This overshadowed his more severe action. Pushing a kid to the edge, then saying he suicide baited when he said he would kill himself. A thing that no one brings up with John Swan because he is intelligent. Well spoken. He was just a teenager himself when he made these bad decisions. Not to make excuse for his behavior. But he was the same age as Technical's brother when he shared nudes to minors. If you are willing to forgive him for that, let the Dream thing go. We agree saying a kid suicide baited is deplorable. But if Technicals is willing to say Zero had trauma and maybe that's why he doesn't know how to act his age, it made him speak to underage girls, like Michael Jackson.
What I think we're looking at is a culmination of a fucked up childhood and trauma, resulting in emotional immaturity and a lack of genuine and fulfilling relationships. When Zero first publicly shared a story of how he grew up in Chile, we discovered how his father exposed him to sex at the age of 5, and brutally beat him and his mother. After the age of 11 to 12, he hardly received a proper education, and when he finally went to middle school, he was molested by an older boy, and began to think and act as if he were gay to cope with the trauma. Just one look at Chile's extraordinarily progressive age of consent laws should give you an idea of how that worked out for him. I'm not just saying this so you'll pity him, I'm just saying his circumstances were pretty fucked, and it's not unreasonable to assume that a traumatized, depressed shut-in would have a lack of meaningful and genuine relationship experience. But I don't know Zero enough to make that conclusion, so I found someone who would.
Then we think it's fair to apply the same logic to John Swan. If he had faced trauma from people threatening him with suicide to get their way, would you understand why John Swan wouldn't believe Pie Man's suicide note or Zero's suicide note?
Oh yeah, people are blaming me for what came next. Pie Man dropped something. This is probably even worse for me, okay? This is a little bit serious, so I'm going to turn off the music, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to go mask off here. I don't know. Maybe people would agree with me, and that's fine. We don't have to agree. I just have to be careful how I word this. I've dealt in my past with people that have weaponized suicide to try and get something from me or try to make me feel bad for them. This has happened multiple times in my life, and ever since that's happened, I've had a very, more cynical view about this stuff in the past. Raintism came out with a document, a Google document, I think, outlining everything, and near the end of the document that I didn't even read because I didn't read the whole thing, but at the end of the document he said, I might just upload my next video and then fucking kill myself. And I'm just... It came out later. Okay, well, those weren't genuine. That wasn't a genuine thing. He, literally, turned around and said he's fine. So he tried to weaponize a suicide attempt to try and make us feel bad about him saying he was being attracted to a 12-year-old. And I can't condone that. I can't say that's fine, that's cool, that's good. That makes it even worse. People are blaming me now for him putting that in the document. But from my perspective, it's like you were literally trying to make people feel bad for you because of things that you brought upon yourself.
Pie Man was younger with more emotions, and he at the very least said he would kill himself. Zero didn't state it. He walked it back. With the added context of Technical's video, it appears to be a suicide note, but only if you are willing to believe that. Technicals appears to have made this as a Zero defense video, so we don't know if the line of questioning left for space to walk the confession back. He stated he is not friends with Zero, but later said he likes him, giving him the benefit of the doubt that could be as a content creator, respect as a top Smash figurehead. It doesn't mean he likes him as a friend. He doesn't want him back in tournaments, so his goal to exonerate Zero stops at. This confession was made under duress, and being the only proof he admit to solicit nudes was in this document. In the confession he says everything Katie speaks is true. Before this confession he made a detailed response, selecting a few screenshots to respond to. That's why Technicals said at the very least Zero spoke inappropriately to an underage girl at 19. John Swan shows that Technicals accidentally leaked DMs with Zero. It shows them talking 5 months soon to the video coming out. This doesn't mean there is a friendship. To Technicals it may be business. When Nicholas DeOrio calling out John Swan, he was completely transparent. There was no integrity to question. We have always respected Nicholas DeOrio integrity and work ethic. He leaves no stone unturned. This conversation with Zero feels manipulative. Technicals leaked DM reveals more questions. Technicals concludes by saying this happened one time 7 years ago while Zero was 19.
When I first took on this case, I'll be honest, I had quite the few reservations about Zero. Some of you might even remember me saying things like, I can't do anything, I'm not a fucking miracle worker. But after thoroughly reviewing the case files, the motivations, the state bylaws, the contradictions, and the traffic violations, I came to where I am now. Zero's conversations with Katie were 100% irresponsible and wrong in my opinion. The issue for me is that this isn't something that was caught in the moment. This happened once 7 years ago when he was 19, and then never happened again. The only inference I can reasonably pull from that is that he either realized it was wrong and stopped it himself, or his mental maturity finally caught up with him after years of trauma and a lack of proper education.
John Swan points at this one time was a time of months. The wording is misleading. John Swan's credibility is still at question. He is being criticized for something he done at 19, lying to friends and Dream. For a joke he made when he was 18, possibly younger. The lie got out of control, only made worse by John making a long audiobook detailing the false innocence, painting Dream to be the liar when he knew that he was the liar. We were more offended by the Pie Man situation that got overshadowed thanks to the Dream situation. He allegedly said the N-word in a Minecraft sex mod, then lied about it because he was embarrassed. Cobra confessed it was him to say N-word, not John. Every creator who faces drama for something in their past their age is bought up. If 18 or 19 years old, communities say it's not bad. Pyrocynical, 18. Carson, 19. Technical's brother, 19. Zero, 19. John Swan, 19. Because he told a lie about an embarrassing joke he made at 18, he gets treated worse than someone who had sexually charged conversations to minor. Technical's response to Aji. John Swan lost his credibility after covering up some mild trolling. This is mentioned anytime with John Swan, never Pie Man, dream situation, the lie each time. We need to let this go as a response to John Swan making commentary. Don't listen to him, he lied to dream. We should say 19-year-old made a mistake and is trying to grow. Give him a chance. It's only fair by others getting chance. This video was made because the franchise made a video calling John Swan dishonest. The franchise frames John as acting in bad faith. He has no credibility, he can't be trusted. Intentionally manipulating facts, saying John twisted Technical's words. By giving Zero an interview, it comes off as a sob story. John does not act well to suicide threats being used when he feels he's being manipulated, so it makes sense for him to react this way. This is not John twisting. This is consistent with his beliefs since the Pyman situation. Nikki from Arcade Craniacs broke up with her boyfriend. In one part of her statement, she said he threatened suicide to keep her.
He also threatened to kill himself multiple times during these times when I was breaking up with him. One time in particular, he threatened to kill himself and walked over to the kitchen to get a kitchen knife and held it to his wrist. And I said, "You're not gonna do that. You're scared of death." And I was right. He didn't do it. So hey, if somebody is trying to use this tactic on you, saying they're gonna kill themselves, if you're just because you're trying to break up with them, fuck that. It's not your problem. And they're not gonna do it, by the way. They don't feel guilt for what they're doing. They're not self-aware enough to feel guilt for what they're doing. So no, they are not going to kill themselves. They're saying that so you'll stay with them because they know you're a good person and you would care if they died, even though what they did to you was wrong.
It's a different situation, but this can apply to John and be a perfect example of how someone can be manipulated to get their way. Then how the other responds. You have to watch the whole video to get the true context of what led her up to feeling this. She did not respond well to him weaponizing suicide to manipulate her after what she went through. Here is John Swan telling you himself that people have weaponized suicide to manipulate him.
I've dealt in my past with people that have weaponized suicide to try and get something from me or try to make me feel bad.
You can say that John said, Pie Man didn't kill himself, he said he's fine, and we criticized him for that. But being unbiased, we have to now look at John's past, that he was manipulated by weaponized suicide threats. It makes sense why he doesn't believe Zero's alleged suicide note and sees the inclusion of Zero as emotional manipulation. You can disagree with John, but he is allowed to experience trauma and respond in his own way. And let John heal. Zero has been given that opportunity. Why? Only one person's form of pain is valid because they are liked more.
Whether you decide to support Zero in the future is entirely up to you. But let's stop this arbitrary game of deciding who is and isn't a redeemable person based off who we want to believe more.
We criticized John Swan for his handling of Pie Man, but this doesn't come at the invalidation of his own pain. He related to Dream's response to being caught in a lie and criticized him. Can he not learn from his mistake and tell others to not follow? Now we will go over franchise video.
Anyways, the purpose of this video isn't to debunk John Swan's personal opinion that Zero should be deplatformed. This video is simply meant to debunk the idea that John's opinion is the only valid opinion.
The purpose of John's video was not that he should be deplatformed. It was to point out that technicals mislead and built a narrative. Deplatforming Zero was a point he made because people who get caught talking to underage kids that way shouldn't have a place where they can reach kids. Technical's follow-up video intro, he shows a tweet from someone in the community says Zero solicited nudes. That was John Swan's point to mention the platform. Zero solicited nudes irregardless if he got them, he still made the request. Technicals says likes on this tweet are an indication that people agree people who talk to underage kids should be banned from events that involve kids. John makes this point too, but goes for total deplatform, not just events.
In his video, John makes several dishonest claims that don't paint an accurate picture of what Technicals is arguing, thus making his position sound ludicrous when it really isn't.
You are doing the same to John.
John's whole argument hinges on broken evidence. Despite being so confident in his claim that Zero asked Katie for the images, he has nothing to back it up besides Katie's word and Zero's confession. Katie was unable to provide any screenshots that could substantiate her claims, so her testimony alone is not hard proof of anything. This leaves Zero's confession, but what John fails to mention until the latter half of the video is that Zero actually walked back his confession. Zero claims that the confession was a suicide note meant to sabotage himself and truly intended to take his own life after posting it.
Zero himself confirmed that the conversation with Katie is true. In the initial response to allegation. Not just the confession, not just Katie words. His own Google Doc. It's true. Outside of the confession we have no proof he confessed to solicit nudes, but he does admit to the select screenshot as real.
Technicals actually covers this in the video, but John chose to twist it by saying Technicals is trying to excuse Zero's behavior by manipulating the audience with a sob story.
Technicals spends the next 3 minutes interviewing Zero and Vanessa, recanting details about Zero's graphic suicide story. This entire section completely took me by surprise, and I can see it served no other purpose than to emotionally manipulate the audience to feel bad for Zero.
John, you and I both know that was not the purpose of that section. What Technicals is saying is that if the confession is a suicide note, then it can't be used as evidence as it was a forced confession written under extreme mental distress.
Franchise says, John, you and I both know that was not the purpose of that section. You know what you know. John knows what he knows. By Franchise injecting his own belief into John or assuming John is acting under bad faith. With the support automatically on his side from shattered credibility, John stands no chance to be believed. The fact is Zero's original statement has no mention of suicide. Pie Man's statement did. That's what a suicide note looks like. Zero's statement in his mind may well have been a suicide note. It doesn't look like one. The added context of walking it back makes it a suicide note according to Technicals, and Zero claims it wouldn't hold up in court because it was made under extreme stress. We're not a lawyer. Knowing how John Swan responds to people claiming suicide threat, not surprising he doesn't buy it.
Even Zero's confession wouldn't hold up in court because it was made under extreme stress and outside pressure.
Technicals is claiming that Zero was not of sound mind when giving his confession, so it's entirely possible that he admitted to things that he hadn't done. This is corroborated by the fact that Zero also admitted guilt to another situation where he was innocent. Keep in mind that the Laura situation was not in contention until Zero brought it up in his confession. He wasn't responding to an allegation when he wrote that bit, so why would he bring it up if he wasn't trying to sabotage himself as he claims? I also want to point out that this confession was not the first statement he made about Katie. He actually made a statement before this where he also addressed Leffen's allegations, but as you can see here it says, specifically I want to start by taking ownership and apologize to Jisoo, Katie, and Leffen for my actions. Leffen and Jisoo's allegations were not true, but he's taking ownership for them and apologizing. Why am I supposed to take Zero's confession at face value when there's reason to discard it? And he also has a history of admitting to and apologizing for things that he didn't do.
Franchise also says Zero has a history of apologizing for things he didn't do, so why would he take his apology to Katie when he apologized to 2 others for things he is innocent of? It's not your apology to accept, it's the victim's apology, that's why. In this same document you reference, he responds to a few of the screenshots from Katie. He's apologizing to that conversation. Keep this part in mind. We need to come back.
90% of the context is missing. It was at this point that I realized the Technicals was trying to build a narrative.
Obviously, I'm talking about it because it's a narrative. Every video that talks about shit like this is a narrative, obviously.
Oh, and by the way, what he just said about omitting 90% of the twit longer, well, even that is a half-truth, because while it is true that Tech did this, he actually shows screenshots of what those omitted parts are referring to anyways, so that point was ultimately irrelevant. Meanwhile, John is literally taking information that isn't verifiably true and pushing it as indisputable fact, while I'm supposed to sit here and call Technicals the dishonest one building a narrative.
John's video is from the view that the confession stands as a confession. Franchise and Technicals see it as a walked-back suicide note, so it has to be disregarded. Franchise video frames John as intentionally making false claims that Zero solicited nudes from an underage girl, because he said nobody knows if he solicited nudes. Based on this disregarded confession, Technicals video stands on debunking the confession with the view the confession is a suicide note. Of the many screens Katie provides, the less incriminating ones he has admitted to. In the ideal world, it automatically makes you guilty of the full deck. To quote Franchise, "You and I both know that."
Just to remind you, when he was 19, Zero groomed a 14-year-old girl for months and pressured her to send him pictures of her performing sex acts. Yeah, dude, he just kind of tripped and fell and groomed a minor for like 3 months and asked her to shove ice up her pussy. And saying that no images were exchanged is just poisoning the well. He asked for them. It doesn't matter if the girl sent them or not. The intent was still there.
Zero never exchanged images with Katie, which is his worst perceived crime to this day.
He asked for them. Doesn't matter if he didn't receive any. The intent was still there. How many times do I have to go over this?
We don't know whether or not Zero asked Katie for the pictures, but you present it in your video as if it was proven true. If that isn't dishonest, then I don't know what is.
Franchise includes bottom text, not explaining why John has no evidence. John allegedly has no evidence, because the only place he admitted to asking for pictures was the confession. Reminding the viewers he is dishonest, building a narrative.
John claims throughout his video that Technicals is trying to downplay Zero's actions to make him seem innocent. What Technicals is trying to do is understand the source of why Zero did the things he did. He doesn't think Zero flirted with Katie because he maliciously seeks out vulnerable children. He thinks it's because Zero was a confused 19-year-old that didn't know what was and wasn't appropriate to say in conversation to someone who's that young.
What I'm trying to say is that I don't believe this to be the result of a specific or malicious preference, as is the case with repeat offenders such as pedophiles and Discord mods. What I think we're looking at is a culmination of a fucked up childhood and trauma, resulting in emotional immaturity and a lack of genuine and fulfilling relationships.
If you look at Zero's upbringing and the relationships he grew up in and around, this conclusion starts to make some sense. And when you consider the fact that Zero's behavior isn't, to our knowledge at the time of this video, a recurring pattern, and it might be fair to say that Zero isn't a current danger to children. But throw all that out the window, because John Swan is here to tell us what Tech is actually trying to do.
It's pretty apparent that Tech is making excuses for Zero throughout. Oh yeah, he might have asked a 14-year-old girl to stick ice up her pussy, but did you know he tried to kill himself? He may have groomed her for months, but did you know how messed up his childhood was? Like, it's just so blatant. Tech doesn't even try to hide it.
It doesn't matter if he intentionally seek her out or not. When learning her age, he should have removed himself from the conversation. He was 19, she was 14. John Swan's point is his childhood abuse and trauma is irrelevant when it comes to an adult communicating inappropriately with an underage child. This had no place in the vindication of Zero being innocent of soliciting nudes. If this was just a video about why he attempted suicide, that would be relevant story. There is no excuse for talking inappropriate to minors. Ask Mama Max.
Now we get to the brother argument, which is probably the dumbest argument because it falls apart with even a smidgen of common sense, yet the commentary community loves to cling on hard to it. Now that John has established that Tech is defending and making excuses for Zero, he now tries to go to the root of his motivation.
The brother argument is not dumb. He sent nude pictures of himself into a chat that had minors. He should be deplatformed, and so should Zero.
Came to BJ and told him that was a really fucking stupid thing to do. Don't do something like that again, because we are in a group chat where, you know, it might be bad for other people. Told him it was stupid, never to do it again, and guess what? He didn't do it again.
Hey, it's John from the future here. This isn't even true. If we look back in the screenshots that were provided with the twit longer, we can see that the first time BJ did this was the 24th of December 2016, and then he did it again on February the 18th, 2017. So he did do it again. That's just a complete and utter lie from Technicals.
Imagine calling someone a liar while lying yourself. Here are the messages Tech showed when he claimed he condemned his brother and told him to stop. As you can see, they are dated after February 18th, so unless you can show me proof that his brother continued after March 28th, 2017, then Technicals is indeed telling the truth.
Imagine calling someone out for not knowing information that wasn't publicly available until you made your video calling that person out. We could be wrong, but the first time seeing this was in a tweet made the same day as John's video. Franchise should prove the source or this is bad faith. December, BJ posts first nude. Again February. March is when Technicals tells him stop. Why did it take month to tell him stop? Franchise is right, there is no proof, but we have to ignore simple logic that for months Tech wasn't using this chat he was the leader of.
Let's recap. John asserts that Tech is excusing and downplaying Zero's behavior in an attempt to defend him. He backs up his claims with faulty evidence and repackages Technical's arguments, such as his arguments against Nairo. John also claims that Tech didn't condemn his brother's behavior in the group chats despite there being hard evidence to the contrary. He also blames Tech for enabling some of the conversations that happened in chats Tech wasn't a part of. John then makes the argument that Tech can't condemn Zero because he would have to condemn his brother as well, despite the fact that Tech did both.
Franchise appears to have a strong bias towards Technicals and against John Swan. If John Swan acted in bad faith, this must be equal. Look no further than his credibility segment.
This line of logic is a fallacy known as presupposing a frame. What John does is he assumes we've agreed to his first 2 points, and if that's the case, then the last point that Tech can't condemn Zero would actually make sense. But if we dig deeper into the root of the issue to find that his assertions are based on broken evidence and lies, we realize that this whole argument collapses. And I'm not even nitpicking here. This line of thinking was very essential to the video, and John dedicated large chunks of the video to explain himself.
Franchise also presupposes a frame before, referring to Zero apologizing for things he didn't do. Franchise said this.
I also want to point out that this confession was not the first statement he made about Katie. He actually made a statement before this where he also addressed Leffen's allegations, but as you can see here, it says, specifically, I want to start by taking ownership and apologize to Jisoo, Katie, and Leffen for my actions. Leffen and Jisoo's allegations were not true, but he's taking ownership for them and apologizing. Why am I supposed to take Zero's confession at face value when there's reason to discard it? And he also has a history of admitting to and apologizing for things that he didn't do. This line of logic is a fallacy known as presupposing a frame.
If 2 apologies are false, the third must be false too. Franchise own line of thinking. That is presupposing a frame. This whole video is based on John Swan's reputation being damaged. Using his lack of credibility to build your narrative, he is dishonest, acting in bad faith, and can't be trusted. You ignore the fact John's video believes the confession. John doesn't believe someone who talks to minors should be online.
When the crux of your video is built on lies and deception, it means you've made a terrible video.
John's video isn't built on lies and deception, neither is Franchise video. But the video is built on ignoring that John doesn't believe the confession is a suicide note. Franchise instead frames John as intentionally dishonest.
Throughout Technical's time of creating investigations into Smash, I believe that he's done some genuinely great work. Some people have unreasonably had their reputations completely ruined and deserve a second chance. Technicals was able to vindicate these people, and with that, he achieved a certain level of credibility within the space.
John Swan is the last person to enlighten us about credibility. He is a known manipulator and liar who will do anything to avoid accountability until he corners himself from all his lies and gives an insincere apology. The fact that John has to lie this much in order to make his point shows that this goes beyond credibility. This is about integrity.
John Swan is praising the great work of Technicals. Franchise mentions his credibility and finds a way to bring up his mistakes with the dream drama. We should not ignore all the credible work John done for the community. We have had our doubts about his sources in the past, but his research on Suzy Liu was valuable to bringing eyes on her actions. His Chris Hansen videos. His undeniable talents with editing inspired everyone in commentary.
John Swan, you have no integrity at all. You purposefully omit key information and present lies based upon broken evidence as if it's indisputable proof and expect an expert like me to blindly believe what you are saying. You can't educate me on something I know better than you do. I've been a part of the Smash community for 5 years and was there during the Me Too movement of July 2020. There is nothing you can say that I don't have an answer for.
John Swan didn't claim to be a professional in Smash community. He said at the beginning he knows nothing about Smash.
Even though I knew absolutely nothing about Smash, his videos were always incredibly engaging and kept me hooked the whole way through.
Putting words into his mouth to give more weight to your argument on one he didn't make while questioning his integrity, questioning his motivation.
So when you present these lies in front of me, I realize that you haven't changed since you bullied a 15-year-old almost to suicide, then claimed he was suicide baiting when he didn't actually attempt it. You are in fact still the same dishonest manipulator that took advantage of his friend's trust to protect himself, which reminds me of another person that you referred to as human garbage.
Calling back to him lying in the past and attaching it with him lying now is misleading. Just because he used the word credibility. This video tells us this. Because you tell a lie before. You don't have the right to even use a word. There's a word for that.
Disenfranchised.
Let's stop this arbitrary game of deciding who is and isn't a redeemable person based off who we want to believe more.
Don't mind me, I'm passing through, can't help but feel subdued. 'Cause maybe I misjudged you.